I can safely say I've never followed another Brendan before in speaking. I thank you for that introduction, Dwight. I had the opportunity to serve for 6 years in the State House with Rodney Tom when he was in the legislature. 2 of those years he was a House Republican. We served on the Banking and Insurance Committee together, where he was really unremittingly hostile to consumers and organized labor, giving me no foreshadowing that in 2006 he would be recruited as a Senate Democratic candidate over Debbie Golden, who had almost beaten him in 2004. But we're a generous party, and when Rodney Tom, with the help of over $109,000 in Democratic organization donations, defeated Luke Esser in 2006, he was welcomed to the Senate Democratic caucus as if he had always been a Democrat. He was really welcomed with open arms. In fact, when 6 months after taking his Senate office in 2007, he immediately ran for Congress, Eastside Democratic legislators lined up behind him, really unanimously, before he dropped out in favor of Darcy Berner. He was given the important post of Senate Ways and Means Vice Chair and effectively wrote a budget that he then voted against. So he really was given, I think, every opportunity by our party to be a very valuable part of it. I think his talents were recognized by us. And so where this sense of grievance arose, I'm not entirely sure. But after voting against the budget and really being characterized by Margarita Prentice, who was then the Senate budget chair, as somebody who just didn't really even understand himself, he's really been adrift. Our party still helped him in 2010 in his reelection. He was still a part of the team, but then he fell into the quasi-democratic roadkill caucus in 2011 and started to really side with Republicans more overtly on some issues. And then, of course, last year we saw the takeover of the state Senate by Senator Tom, then Senator Jim Castema, and Senator Tim Sheldon, old reliable when it comes to capitulating to the Republicans. So now we're supposed to believe that Rodney Tom runs the Senate as its majority leader of some majority caucus coalition or whatever it is. And I really, just knowing Rodney Tom, having worked with him in the past, I don't buy it. I think he's really too weak. I think he's less a leader than a quisling, and that he's really, if you look at what's happened this legislative session, the real leader of the Senate has been Don Benton, who has been emboldened by his narrow victory over Tim Probst, and Rodney Tom has really just been a marionette that just dances to the strings that Don pulls. As of today, Benton had introduced 56 items of legislation. They include bills ranging from the objectionable, such as requiring parental consent for abortions, to the outright kooky, such as a bill banning local governments from cooperating with the United Nations. And even that latter bill is scheduled for a hearing in a committee chaired by one of the chairs that Rodney Tom has selected. There was an interesting quote that I read in Friday's Kirkland Reporter, and thinking about these remarks, and pretty inspiring, actually, not as inspiring as some of the things that FDR said, but inspiring nonetheless. As Democrats, I believe it is our job to stand up for working people, fight for their jobs and their attempts to provide for their families. That was Rodney Tom, quoted in this past Friday's Kirkland Reporter. So let's consider some of those that Rodney Tom has installed as leaders. A Commerce and Labor chair with a 0% labor voting record. She hails from Moses Lake. a judiciary chair with a 100% anti-choice and 100% NRA voting record, a governmental operations chair who is Tim Eyman's best friend. Let me know if you're guessing who this is. Once threatened a staff member with a gun and has been banned from Republican caucus participation in the past. And then last but not least, although there are many others, Michael Baumgartner as budget vice chair after his landslide defeat by Senator Maria Cantwell. Baumgartner, who is ardently opposed to family planning funding, lost by 18,000 votes in Tom's own district. So in partnering with Mark Schessler, the Senate Republican leader, Tom has also hooked up with an anti-government ideologue who has devoured over $1 million from the trough of federal farm subsidies for his farm over in Ritzville, and yet would begrudge living wages for home care workers, for example. Tom himself is a multimillionaire who lives in a 7,700 square foot waterfront Medina mansion worth $5 million, and yet he's condemned the state for building schools that are too extravagant. At the same time, he chiseled taxpayers for a Bose headset that cost $164. The foundation of Rodney Tom's reign is treachery and hypocrisy. We've heard him reassure us that he'll look out for our values. After all, he says, this is all bipartisan, and he is 100% pro-choice. But if Rodney Tom is 100% pro-choice, why will the Reproductive Parity Act not receive a hearing in his Senate while a parental consent bill already has? Why did he put Michael Baumgartner in a position to deny family planning funding? Is that looking out for our values? Rodney Tom also led a crusade to do away with the gateway to affordable higher education for kids like my 10-year-old. Again, is that looking out for our values? Rodney Tom signed onto a Centralia Republicans bill to repeal Seattle's democratically enacted sick leave bill. Now again, to quote his inspiring words, as Democrats, I believe it is our job to stand up for working people. I thought Republicans were in favor of local control. In fact, that's why they have fought so vigorously against the Affordable Care Act. They say that this is something that should be left to the states, and surely by that logic, decisions such as Seattle should be left to local governments. Again, not looking out for our values. Tom's Senate last week heard a bill requiring a year-long wait for a divorce, even for abused women. The second co-sponsor of that bill is Mike Carroll, who once ran an anti-child support group called POPS, or Parents Opposed to Punitive Support. Again, is that looking out for our values? Tom's Senate has pushed bills to gut our state's workers' compensation laws and even allow private for-profit companies to schedule injured workers' exams, companies that are incentivized when those workers' injuries are found not to be severe. Tom's Senate has also tried to gut Initiative 937, which moves us forward on renewable energy. Initiative 937 got 54% of the vote in Rodney Tom's district. Again, is he looking out for our values here? And then tying it into ALEC, Rodney Tom's Senate has also pushed bills straight out of ALEC's playbook. Pretend moderate Steve Litzau's bill to grade schools is an ALEC proposal. Rather than fund schools, as the Washington Supreme Court has required, Tom's Republican Senate would keep piling ALEC-inspired requirements upon them. As mentioned before, another ALEC bill is Pam Roach's effort to enshrine Eymanism in our state constitution by requiring a supermajority for tax increases. If you haven't had the opportunity, you really should queue up the hearing in which that bill was heard on TVW, or at least read John Stang's excellent account of it in Crosscut, in which Pam Roach proceeds to taunt every witness before her and all the senators on her panel by the margins with which Eyman's initiative had passed their respective districts, and then proceeds to ask every witness who is opposed to the legislation that she is trying to push through whether or not they're rich. Which is just an absolute shocking breach of decorum, but, you know, arguably no more shocking than pulling a gun on a worker. Another ALEC bill is Benton's that's requiring drug testing of welfare recipients. Benton is the state's ALEC co-chair alongside Representative Jan Angel, who hopes to join him in the Senate this fall in the race for Derek Kilmer's former Senate seat. Yes, no way, exactly. Angel introduced the same bill. Even the conservative Seattle Times this weekend noted drug testing would cost more than it would save and suggested that with misguided proposals like this, voters may want drug testing for a different set of state money recipients. Lawmakers. Sometimes they get it right. Tom says he's a Democrat, and yet on January 10th, Republican Chair Kirby Wilbur put out an email urging Republicans to call Senator Tom's office and say that they stand with him, Senator Sheldon and the entire majority coalition caucus. Tom says he's a Democrat, and yet in that same Friday's Kirkland Reporter in which he exalted labor, he said, "Too many of my fellow Democrats in Olympia have grown arrogant and out of touch with the people we were sent here to represent." And of course, Tom's partner in crime, longtime government double dipper Tim Sheldon, has claimed that he's a Democrat while voting with Republicans, surplusing campaign funds to Republicans, serving as a chair in the past for Republicans for one of their committees, and caucusing with Republicans. Oh, and of course supporting Rob McKenna too, but he is, we are to believe, a Democrat. As the first president, John Adams, once said, "I fear that in every assembly, members will obtain an influence by noise, not sense, by meanness, not greatness, by ignorance, not learning, by contracted hearts, not large souls." This describes Rodney Tom to a T. I'm happily committing to giving to the party's effort to retire Rodney Tom. You may have gotten an email from Dwight about this, the Rodney Tom Retirement Project, which I think is just an outstanding idea. But I do also think there's another takeaway here, and a serious one, not just related to Rodney Tom, and that is, you know, as a party, we need to grow qualitatively, not quantitatively. And all of you have an opportunity to be a part of that effort in finding the right candidates, and that really is what it comes down to, is just that work to get the right candidates. You know, I'm all for a big tent. One of my best friends in the House is a gun-toting coastal Democrat who's 100% NRA. He's an NRA member. But he also had a 100% labor voting record last session. Our tent cannot be so big and so stretched that it actually includes Republicans. And so, you know, I think that that's the takeaway with Rodney Tom, is just that you know, as we look ahead, and particularly as we look to the crucial battleground of the east side suburbs, which were the key to our majorities, and now really is the road through which we must travel in order to, I think, recapture the state Senate, we need to make sure that we get the right kind of Democrats. And so thank you guys for being here, listening to me today. I'm happy to take any questions.
Remove our endorsement of Rodney Tom, and from what I hear, King County did the same. So, you know, keep
Excellent.
I don't know that's.
No, it's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be, all right, George, last question.
Question for you. We're focusing on getting rid of Rodney Tom, and you sent out your email, to which I responded. Is there any focus on getting rid of Tim Sheldon? Sheldon to the same extent, and if not, why not?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, we'll pass a resolution on Monday night.
You know, there's, the answer is yes. I mean, the reality on this thing, though, is that Sheldon's been up to this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He's taken a record back to his voters many times. He's a double dipper. The guy gets paid as a county commissioner and as a state senator, and he's crossed the aisle several times. You know, it's instructive that Rodney Tom is a majority leader, and who knows what Tim Sheldon's post is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sheldon is not really the ringleader on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing a dance he's done many times. Tom is the ringleader, and he's out there far more exposed, in a sense, than Sheldon is. So, yes, we will be going after Tim Sheldon, but we've gone after Sheldon the last couple elections. You know, he's literally one of the only Democrats that we've opposed in recent elections. So Sheldon's sort of in a different league. You know, Sheldon was a Republican, became a Democrat. He kind of knew he couldn't become a Republican again, because that would look a little bit too much. So he created this whole bipartisan coalition thing. You know, in past, when Von Reitbauer came over, when people come over and change the majority, they come in as a member of the caucus, and that caucus elects the majority leader. Sheldon came in and said, look, I'll do this, but you make me number one.
Tom.
Tom said, I'll do this, but you make me the top dog. I mean, this is unprecedented.
It is.
This is a guy that could not earn the respect of the Republican caucus, could not earn the respect of the Democratic caucus, and yet today he's the most powerful person in the Senate. And no one respects him. You know, so he's playing a different game than Sheldon in a lot of ways, and he's playing a different game than we've ever seen it played before. So, you know, we think he's vulnerable, and we're going to go after him on that. We're going to move along. Again, Brendan, are you going to be at the crab feed tonight?
Yes.
All right. And thanks to Brendan for the fabulous research. And again, we're filming this. This is going to be online. This is a terrific panel we're putting together here today, and we hope you'll be able to go back and share it with folks. And I want to now bring up a terrific panel of labor leaders here to talk about the themes that Brendan Fischer raised about the ALEC